Welcome to this week's Desk Side Chat. Our conversation for this week is connecting with your female clients. Our featured guest this week is Karen Oeser. Karen, appreciate you joining us this week.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Karen, you have this project called Financial Literacy for Her, and we're going to get into this topic broadly here today in this conversation. But I'd like you to start by just providing a little bit of a background on yourself and your experience in the industry and kind of what led you to take on this project.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I was in the traditional investment business for nearly 25 years. I cut my teeth on the sell side, on institutional brokerage side. And then I quickly jumped over to the buy side. I worked for Wellington Management Company following the environmental and chemical industry. And I went from there, I went to business school. And then I got an amazing job working for a Swiss bank. I was managing their emerging market funds and I lived in Switzerland and the UK. And after coming back stateside, I then worked a little bit I did some marketing and started working with connecting the right investors, doing some investor relations type work, working with investors, trying to help them connect, companies connect with their investors. And when I did that, it really kind of planted the seed for me and where I'm at now with trying to say, people are saying two different things, how to communicate it in a way that investors can receive it and want it and connect with them. So I really started to hone that skill set before I really knew kind of where I was going in this back half of my life. And then I worked for 11 years for an RIA based out of Spokane, Washington, and I oversaw all the fixed income assets. And I did that for 11 years, and it was an amazing experience. I worked for a boss who really understood how to connect with women well. And so in some of my other experiences, I've seen where it didn't work so well. So I really had a point of contrast. And one of the things that really struck me is women going through transition really struggled. They came in, they were embarrassed. They didn't even know where to begin. And it was really heartbreaking to see that. And, my boss was really good at being able to connect with them. And I was really kind of studying to see why was that. And so, one of the reasons I had left the traditional investment business was because I was overseeing all the fixed income asset. I was looking for some alternative ways to make income outside of just stocks and bonds. So I started a company called Eastlight Investments, and we invest in multifamily real estate. And so once I started that, I started combining and say, I want to really do something different. And so through my Eastlight Investments company I was on the CFA. I'm on the board of the CFA Institute here in South Carolina, also with women in investing in on the national front and the local front. And so I started to say, wait a minute, there's just something missing here. There seems to be a missing element of women having a safe space to come and talk about their finances. And so that's where Financial Literacy for Her was really born, is creating a safe space. But in that, I also realized that once you help women try to understand finance and become comfortable with it, we all want to send them to financial advisors because they're the ones who are equipped to it. So, financial coaches help walk them through the process, where the working with financial advisors, it's really now we've helped work unpackage some of that stuff. Who can we send them to who steward that relationship with the dignity and respect that it deserved? And so in that process, I started creating kind of a two-pronged program. One is from the consumer side, we're working with women, trying to prep them, and then it's really working with financial advisors, because one, how to communicate with women, but also when your partner is somebody like us who's coaching them, we make your clients better clients, and we also shorten the sales cycles. So that's kind of how I got to where I am now. So Financial Literacy for Her, the way I talk about myself is I really help bridge the skills gap between female investors and financial advisors.
And this is something, I see a lot in you and myself and others, where it's passion. It's more than just a job. It's something that is driving you, something that's very important. Why is this such an important topic in the industry, Karen?
Well, it's wow, I just got chills before I even answered the question, because literally I call myself a passionate financial literacy advocate. And that's really, really important to me, because we have a financial illiteracy epidemic in this world. I mean, and in this country, it's just unbelievable. 58% of people don't even have a simple budget, and you're looking at, 80% of people are living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, the stats are horrific. And also, as we know that there's this big transfer of wealth going into female hands, and only 48% of women are comfortable talking to a financial advisor. And that's pretending how you and that's depending on how you pose the question. I think the number is actually lower than that, because in my own personal experience, and it's really interesting is that there's a study by the American College that I read recently, and Merrill Lynch had actually done a covert study looking at primarily it was the male financial advisors that were interviewing their clients, and 80% of them only looked at the women a few times. They connected completely with the men. And so that's why, Houston, we have a problem. And the men aren't doing that on purpose. We've got a lot of cultural things with that. So that's why I thought this is a really way, because they're not doing that on purpose. It's just one of those things. And so that's why actually, I work with the financial advisors and coach them through to reworking that. Why is that? And part of it is because a lot of the ways that all financial advisors were taught, I've done it all. I've walked that path. I know it, how we're, the market is created. And so a lot of our sales cycle and the way we approach it is a way that doesn't connect with women often. So asking the right questions. Women aren't impressed by stats when you say, I've done this, I've done that. And it's like, what can you do for me? Do you see me? Do you hear me? And so you try to think about what are those questions. And so when you start asking those kind of questions, the women are naturally engaged as well. So it's a really a great way to start connecting with them, and it shortens the sales cycle. It does every time when the woman feels seen and heard and understood. And so that's why I'm passionate about it from both ends, is because one, is that I want to do something about the financial illiteracy epidemic from the consumer side, but I also want to be able to create it. So, my other dog I have in the fight is I've been a financial advisor. So I want to do something for our industry. And so there's a positive connotation with it, and say, yes, this is a place for women. This is a place for women to not only work as advisors, but it's also a place for women to have their assets stewarded.
And you mentioned 48% or whatever the number is of women who would be uncomfortable generally speaking with an advisor. Why do you believe that is the case, Karen?
Yeah, it's because they don't want to feel stupid. They don't want to, they don't want to feel like, I have no idea what's going on. I'm going to be told that what I've been doing is wrong. And most importantly, what I want isn't important. So for example, just put some examples behind that is, traditionally in investments, it's been stocks and bonds. But one of the things that women really are interested in, who are coming, because the women are making a lot of money now. This isn't just about a spouse whose spouse has passed on or dealing with divorce. That is a component too. But there are a lot of women out there making money, and so they want to talk a little bit more about stocks and bonds. They also want to talk about insurance products. They also want to talk about things that the big elephant in the room with the autism. It's, with so many kids with autism and disabilities right now, they want to talk about how are we going to fund that? What is that going to look like? How is there's going to be a place for that? Or they really want to invest in other people's businesses. Whether it's their own or somebody else's, they also want to think about long-term health care. And so a lot of times what's happened in our industry is we've really looked at it in a silo. Women by nature don't live in silos. That's not how we operate. We want to look at the broad spectrum. So, one of the things, we wrote this book called Financial Literacy for Her, or excuse me, Mind of Gold, Girlfriend's Guide to Financial Freedom. And one of the things we talk about is money management as a team sport. So, and part of that is, knowing what their purpose is and knowing what their goals are. And to that end is then you want to get your whole financial team. You get your financial advisors, you get your insurance providers, your attorneys, accountants, et cetera, to make sure they're going towards the same end goal. So if you're not talking to a female client about what's the broad picture and being able to comfortably talk about that, a lot of times they'll shut them down. It's like, how much money do you have to invest, and what are you going to do in it, and where's your risk tolerance? And by the way, I'm so impressive because I have all these stats. that's not speaking to a woman's heart. That's not going to capture her attention. And often if it's a couple, that speaks to the male, because that's the males, bottom line, what can you do? I trust you. That's why I came to you. Show me the stats that you deserve it. Whereas the women want to say, I want you to understand my family. I want you to be engaged in what matters to me. And so if all of a sudden it's kept to a very, very narrow topic and give me your money and we'll put it here, that will shut women down a lot, and they don't want to go there. Because one, they're not conversant in it, but two, it's just feeling unseen. And it's like, wait a minute, if I've had enough of that in my life, if I get that from my advisor too, no, thank you, and I'll just take a pass. And that's very common.
So if somebody is in a transition point, a female client, prospective client in a transition point, maybe not comfortable talking with advisors, or just just wants to, where do those people typically go? Is it are they just going a discount route? Is it that they're just putting money into savings? What's the typical path for somebody who
It will
isn't
blow
willing to
your
work?
mind. For the females who actually have money, mattress. I'm not kidding you. I am blown away with literally millions of dollars in effectively a mattress in the savings account, almost paying the bank for quite
Well,
some
losing
time.
money with inflation right now. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And so and so that's what they've been doing. So that's one of the reasons, like, the financial coaching business has started to take off. But then I get very passionate about there, because there are a lot of people who don't know what they're doing and can actually make it worse, And so that is one of the things where, and what my boss had done as well is, because if you spend all your time trying to handhold as well, that's not a cost effective model either. So that's a little bit why it's like, yeah, I understand that's a need, but how do you address that? And some of the ways you can address that as well is if you have assistants that you work with, that they can help doing a little bit of that nurture and the coaching. But so what happens for me is I get a lot of call from financial advisors. I just had a wonderful call with somebody I was referred to last week, and money wasn't her problem, but the fact is she had some mindset issues where she didn't want to let go of it, and she was just hoarding it. So I worked with her through some of those mindset issues, and part of it was, she was told something, at one point in her life, she was told that it's bad to let your money go, and hoard it, and afraid, because she had been, brought up with that's coming down from the grandparent who still had the depression issues, so it was that mindset. So a lot of times, if you can tap into what are those money blocks, are you somebody that, just want to spend your money? And when the type of client you're working with, it really helps you know, how can I tap into what is their money block? What's keeping them from that? Or one of the things for her that was really exciting is, soon as I helped her think about what are your dreams, what's your purpose, she's like, oh my God, I had this dream. I just totally put to bed because it overwhelmed me how much money I had to make. But now I took her through this exercise, and I call it a dream sequence of Dare to Dream. And after that, she was fired up. She was ready to put her money to work. And the advisor who referred me to her, they're putting the money to work now, because now she has a dream. She has something, they really, and a lot of times, with advisors, it'd be, what's your charity? But a lot of times that's coming in assumed you've already explored that. But then if you go and spend some time thinking about what is that, what are my broader whys, then when you're telling your client, well, we should do X, Y, and Z, they have some stickiness to it, because women don't like to speak in the theoretical. They want to go, what can I do? And let me put some action to it. So that is one of the ways, is kind of tapping into what are their bigger whys and what matters to them, and how, and thinking about what are your legacies. Is it a monetary legacy? Is it an action legacy, or a some sort of some sort of thing you care about? But understanding that beyond just the financial terms, because at the end of the day, once you have that why and understand that, then you can talk about, well, money is a tool. And then you can really talk because a lot with having those negative experiences, and goes across both men and women, really, is that, when you have a poor relationship with money, is you are thinking of it as something to hold something, it's a trigger kind of thing, versus saying, oh my gosh, this is an amazing tool, and let us help you multiply that so your dream can get bigger and bigger.
So this is a topic that is, certainly more prominent in the industry. Our industry has made several strides. We still have a long way to
Yeah,
go.
I agree.
Not enough female advisors, just male dominated industry, all these things. But the industry has made some steps in the right direction.
I
Where
agree.
where are the biggest areas you see the industry or messaging falling short right now, on this important topic?
Well, it is it because there's admitting you have a problem. We're there. We like you said, we made hurdles, and that's no longer saying that doesn't exist. But what do we do about it? What are the tools to help us achieve that? And again, how do you do that in a cost efficient way? In order, the helping women go through their budgets and put together a budgeting plan, that doesn't keep the financial advisors lights on, and that's not what they're paid to do. And so that's why, again, working with people who can help you do that. And so they're working with you, working on that day-to-day hand-holding side of it. Again, that's, I'm not just saying this to talk my own book, but in terms of, that's where the financial coaches really can come in, because the compensation structure is such that it's cheaper for the client to do that, but it can get the client faster to where they need to go. So when they come to the advisor, they're ready to hit the road running. And that's again why you can shorten the sales cycle with that. So really understanding the importance of that. And then also thinking beyond just straight stocks and bonds. And again, our industry has really definitely evolved in that category as well, but really not looking at the finances in a silo. That is one area that still seems to be a real big issue of, there, and again, since I'm not affiliated, I can say this, but there's so many amazing insurance products out there that really, but there are a lot of really bad ones too. And part of the role of looking at from the holistic view is saying there's a place for it for everybody. And the other one is, and I'm finding it just, I've been trying to look for subject matter experts like accountants, lawyers, etc., is playing nicer in the whole sandbox with everybody who has to do with your big financial picture. Financial advisors in a silo, and then insurance and accountants and lawyers, if they're all going towards different goals, it doesn't work for anybody. And I would say that is probably the one area that really has much longer to go than I wished it did. And it's from both sides. But it's time where everybody, it's a team sport, and to start really forging those relationships, because the advisors that I'm seeing are doing really well are the ones who got that memo, and they're doing really well. And then it also helps your referral base.
All parties benefit, right? I mean, the more you align things, and it ends up being, in some of these silo scenarios, unfortunately, the best case scenarios, they're not interfering with one another, and in a lot of cases, they end up being counterproductive and working to the detriment
Absolutely.
of the client.
And I was actually, and I was raised by a CPA, so I heard about this at the dinner table all the time. So, I come to it with that as well. It's like, they just like totally canceled out my whole tax strategy.
Well, and you mentioned, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of people that are getting into personal coaching and things that may not have the background experience, knowledge. If I'm a client, most of our messaging, the people watching this are generally advisors, and we'll circle back to that. But if I'm an end client, a female client or prospective client, how do I sort through all the noise and find the resources that are, truly going to help align all those things into a succinct plan?
Yeah, and part of that is, it's really interesting because I'm working with a consortium of people from all the different verticals. And we're actually working on this app to be a depository as well, almost to have like a single repository of a lot of the basic information, and then be able to take that out to the verticals. But in terms of what can we do right now, and that's one of the things that because we even put that in our book, talking about these are the things you should be asking your financial advisors. These are the things you should be asking your insurance agent. And if they're offended by you asking these questions, it will not be a good match. And so arming with that. So it comes down to education and really, and if you have a client who doesn't want to be educated and is resistant when that is available, that's not going to be a good fit either. So it ends up kind of being a screening tool to say, yeah, with this education and this available to you, this can be a win-win for both parties involved. And, and so part of that is creating resources to send the female prospects to, or pulling from, as the case may be, because that's really where the partnerships really work out, and being able to have a place where everybody can come to and say, okay, have a community of people say, okay, if I, female investor, am wanting to know something about what's this about tax strategy, to know that you can go and get some questions answered. So when you're going, because a lot of times women want to, a lot of times they'll tend to research a little bit, want to know something, and a lot of times the men approach it from the numbers perspective, and the women tend to approach it more from the concept perspective, is like, what do I need to know? And so providing those resources, so in terms from an advisor's perspective, is having those education resources available is really, really important. Because if its position is you need to come see me to get all this information, that seems very hoarding and secretive, versus here's some education for you, here's some resources for you, because this is a win-win for both of us. That communicates a level of confidence from the advisor as well. It's like, I'm not afraid of you going to other places, not necessarily, whether it's a blog, a website, or just information, on their own website. So it starts educating them. So it can become an interaction. The other thing that I really wanted to highlight too is women don't like to be told. They like to engage in a conversation. So if you're doing it, you're doing your presentation and say, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, and you're just telling, versus what do you need, and starting asking those questions that require engagement. And so the woman is really feeling like this is a relationship building, versus saying, let me take your money.
We'll get back into this topic, and we will address this in a more formal capacity. I know you have some presentations and information to share. As far as the general relationship, kind of high level, when you are working with an advisor, Karen, how can you describe what that relationship looks like in your partnerships with advisors?
Yeah, a lot of them is being able to be. One of the things that I like to do is I like to work with them with the kind of money blocks, and especially I specialize in working with the male advisors, to be honest. That's the ones who I tend to work with the most, because a lot of times the female advisors are already kind of there. But a lot of times is when you say this is what they hear. This almost goes to like relationships, right? Of any kind. We've all done that, right? Fine never means fine, right? We know that from a woman. And if you don't, listening out there, you do need to know that. Yeah. But that kind of thing where you're just so that's one of the things that I work with. Also is providing resources, providing the actual education. That's one of the things where I've worked with them, and like we've done webinars and we've done things like that, and we give links to them right away. But a lot of them is just kind of coaching through scenarios, doing some role playing, and what would it look like, what would you do in this situation, and also introducing them to creating networks. So really starting to engage outside of, we need a place like this. This is why I joined this group. FAs need a place. Oops, did I just I didn't just delete you, did I? No.
No, you're
I
still
on
there.
oh, I was having things pop on my screen. I was telling it to stop. So yeah, so we need a place like this. That's why I joined this group. We need a safe place to come here and say, I just need to explore in a safe space. And that's why I love everything that GAF stands for. And you know, and they're, you know, and the other verticals have this as well, but it's like, how can we connect each other and being comfortable with that? Because we have, it's kind of like this whole hoarding thing too. It's like, wait a minute, you know, it's such a finite piece of pie and I need to fight over these assets. But also, you know, if you're dealing with people in real estate, you're dealing with people in, you know, dealing in the micro investing. That's another where place that women are really getting involved in is doing micro investments and being conversant in that and saying, wait a minute, let's all come together and do that. So being comfortable with that is really fun. And so it's been great to see a lot of people kind of come out of their shelves like, yeah, once I get a taste of this, this is fine. And I've got out of, you know, my, you know, and especially depending on whether, and depending on whether they're completely independent or they're working in a larger firm, you know, what kind of resources, what kind of assets do you have? But the smaller the firm, the more exciting it is because you can grow your network very quickly. And financial advisors, and in my experience, typically a lot of the networking stuff, especially if they love that asset management side of the business, networking tends not to be their forte. And that goes with relationship building as well, because a lot of times they're caught up in that asset management side. So if you're one person show doing a lot of the asset management and the sales, a lot of times it's like, okay, let's break out those are two really, really important skill sets. But you can't go overboard one way or the other, because if you're all about sales, you got to manage assets and vice versa. So being able to separate what's important, when do you pull which skill in at what time.
Well, thank you for the shout out on what we're doing. Thank you for being part of it. We're certainly very fortunate to have your expertise and have your involvement in what we're doing. For anyone else who's looking to get in touch with you on either and retail side or on the advisor side, what's the best way for folks to reach out to you, Karen?
Yeah, you can reach me on Financial Literacy for Her is the name of my company. Our website is finliteracyforher.com. And you can reach me at Karen@finliteracyforher.com. I am also on LinkedIn. I'm very responsive to LinkedIn messaging as well. So I'm very responsive to both emails and LinkedIn. And I'm happy to engage. I could talk about this subject all day long. And one of the great things about it is, you know, every experience with the advisor, just like it is with the investor, is unique. So I love seeing what's your unique mix that you bring to the table, and how can we make this help you grow.
Well, we will be getting into this topic many more times. Like I said, in a formal capacity, in a just simply sharing ideas, resources, networking over time. Again, really honored, really appreciate you taking the time to be with us, Karen. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.